Something happened in 2011 that you decide to take seriously investing.
Uh-huh.
What
Yes.
happened?
Get involved with developing community with other real estate investors that are like-minded in such a way they don't have to be exactly like you, but you can see enough of yourself in them. And something that might be helpful for somebody is if you're scared, like run through the long-term scenario. You got to look beyond the next 6 to 12 months, and real estate is very forgiving if you give it time. If you're consistent, things are going to happen.
Real estate agent in Idaho that has expanded her horizons from real estate agent to now investor. And not only that, she created the biggest community of real estate investors in Boise, Idaho. How are you, Jonna?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me, Jen. It's a pleasure to got to meet you face to face once, but now to be across the camera from you. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I was super excited when you share with everybody that you have these real estate club. I saw that everything that started with someone sharing with you the importance of having a community in bigger pockets. And you took that idea and you got inspired and you say, hey, I'm going to establish a community where I can bring investors to learn from each other. Tell me a little bit about that community.
Well, thanks for asking. It happened completely organically. I actually been investing for 21 years, but I didn't get serious about it or really think about what it could do for myself and my family until about, well, over a decade ago, about 2011, I would say. And we were starting to buy some rentals at that time, and I wound up at a Bigger Pockets Summit in Colorado, the first like summit or conference they ever had, and there were 300 people there. And it turns out, to my knowledge, I was the only person from the state of Idaho there. If someone else was there, shout out and let me know. But they were talking about Boise, Idaho, and I realized that there needed to be a bigger community of investors in my state. Both, I was selfish too. I wanted to learn from them and also to just feel like you're not so alone. I didn't necessarily have supportive friends and family that were right there in real estate at that time. And so I decided to do a little meetup for real estate investors. And we started in a bar, in a booth in a bar with 5 people in 2000. I was actually 2014 by the time I started that up. And it's grown organically from there.
That's awesome. So, were you born and raised in Idaho?
I wasn't. It's a funny story. I like to say to all the Idahoans, I say I'm a native Idahoan. To Californians, I say I have ties to California because my grandparents and my parents are Idahoans, both sides of the family. And then my dad got a job in California before I was born, and I actually was raised in San Diego till I was 16. And then they decided to move on back to Idaho. So I have no more family in California, but I have fond memories of being in north coast of San Diego for my first 16 years of life.
That sounds really fun too, actually. So for those people in Idaho, they should shout out there in the comments, like, where they from, so they can share a little bit more with you, especially if they want to know where is the club meeting. And I will make sure that we put a link for all of the people from Idaho so they can connect with you in case they want to join your community and visit the community.
Sounds great.
But something that got my attention, Jonah, is something happened in 2011 that you decide to take seriously investing.
Uh-huh.
What
Yes.
happened?
And I can't pinpoint if it was exactly 11, but right around there. Uh, we were single income, my husband and I. He had a corporate job, still does to this day. And I was home with my little kids at the time. And there was this thing called a recession. You might be familiar with it. And things got really real, right? And real estate values were plummeting, and job security was not a factor. And we had a couple of rental properties at the time, but one of them was losing $800 a month. It was a decision we had made to keep a house we had lived in at one time as a rental. And it was not an ideal rental property with that kind of negative cash flow and a lot of upkeep. It was on 5 acres. And I just had this inkling, when you get those little ideas bubbling up and that like something's coming from someone bigger than you. And I thought, what if we took that negative cash flow property? We have a little bit of equity in it. What about if we flipped it into something that created a second source of cash flow income for us? What difference would that make? And I'm not a mathematician at all or a numbers person, but I was able to kind of model that out and see what a difference it'd make in our life in the next few years. And so we ripped the Band-Aid off and we sold that property at the low point of all real estate time. Get this is for perspective. I think this relates to anyone in Texas or Idaho. We sold a 5-acre parcel, a 2,600 square foot house almost, on the Boise River, beautiful property, and we sold it for $298,000. So it was very low, very low. But what we were able to do is we were able to take that equity that we had in that property and flip it into 2 cash flowing properties. And once I saw that happen and that it actually worked and that we got tenants in, I was hooked that we could create something for ourselves.
So, what was the experience of that first cash flow check after going through all of these painful time of holding a property and seeing negative every month? How was that feeling?
Relief. And not that it wasn't scary along the way. We bought 2 and then I retreated a little bit. I got scared. We kept getting into escrow and looking at other properties, and things were so cheap at that time. But I'm the one who got scared. My husband was pulling me along saying, we can do this, we can do this. And I would get scared because, at that time, you really didn't know if real estate was going to go to zero, because I made the mistake of listening to the news, getting afraid, but then I had to trust myself and go back and look at those 2 properties we had purchased and go, okay, we can do this again. And something that might be helpful for somebody is if you're scared, like run through the long-term scenario. You got to look beyond the next 6 to 12 months, and real estate is very forgiving if you give it time. And so if you know that you're in it for a long-term investment and you put measures in place to protect yourself, most likely you're going to be okay. But it's a scary leap when most of the people in your world aren't doing things like that.
Yes, it is very scary. It is very scary. And it happens at every point. You can be buying a single family home with a couple of 50,000 up to the $1 million in hotel with the multiple zeros. It's still scary. Still is
Right.
scary. I think that what you achieve, or what I'm hearing that you achieve, is you overcome your fear. Your partner supports you and push you to that extra mile, and you go back to the numbers and understanding the industry of the real estate, using your skills as a realtor, that the ones you acquire as a realtor, and you use those skills and you put them in paper in the investor's perspective. And I think that a lot of people miss that point. At the end, it doesn't matter if you are a scientist or not in math, right? There's an easy way to do numbers. And I think that one of the things that you have or that you have done very good is bringing that community that can help you handle some of these questions. How do you put this in paper? How do you make the numbers?
So important.
So talk to me about, and we will get back to the real estate. Talk to me about how you met your husband, a supporter husband that really support you in these adventures.
We grew up together, really. I mean, not literally, but I met him when I was 19 and he was 22. We were at school together in Idaho at the University of Idaho, and got out of school, graduated, got our first jobs. His is in engineering and mine was, I was a corporate event and meeting planner is what I did for a living, before we got married, before we had our oldest. And I was very averse to real estate. My family had not been involved in real estate, even to the end that most of them were renters, not homeowners. And my husband's family had no inclination towards real estate investing either, for the most part, um, and didn't have support necessarily on that end. And it scared me. I just thought, being in business was the way to go. And business is a wonderful thing. But I just was kind of very tunnel visioned. I'd always wanted to be an event planner, and that's what I was going to do. He was in grad school working, very, very busy with this, but he always had an eye for he still to this day has this ability to vision something that is not there. And he would drive me by, we would go for drives all the time looking at real estate. That's what he loved to do. And he would find things, he'd find parcels of land and know they were a deal, and could never get me to pull the trigger because I was scared of it. And he took me kicking and screaming to buy our first rental property 21 years ago. I did not want to do that. And we still own that rental to this day. So it wasn't until many years later, in 2011, that my mind turned. And I think one of the key things is I had to feel that pain for myself, because we were pretty comfortable up until the recession. And so it was a good life. And I was just thinking that, we didn't need to take on all that risk. And so he was very encouraging of me. And incidentally, I actually didn't become a realtor until after I got serious about investing. So I was an investor first, and then I became a realtor. And then after I became a realtor and got my license, then all bets were off. Then that let me loose, and I was all gung ho real estate investing. But it was a journey, and he had a lot of patience.
Wow, that's pretty important. The reason why I ask, it's I know that a lot of partners or couples out there sometimes struggle when one person wants one thing when it comes to investing, and the other person is very conservative. They don't want to do anything. So for me, it was pretty interesting to see how persistent he was until you guys meet, right? And
Right.
in that perspective, and see how suddenly you become the real estate expert now. So it's very
Yeah.
inspiring. It's very inspiring. So now you use your event planning skills to set up your real estate club. So it's that journey.
It comes full circle. It's really fun. I tried some other jobs out in between the two, but I was a teacher for a little bit, which also comes into play with helping other investors. But I would say if someone has a significant other, partner, or spouse that is not along, for the journey, just give it time and just demonstrate by your actions, and stay consistent. You're not asking to do something, you're not proposing to do something immoral or anything that would hurt you if you're doing it right and you get educated. And if done right, I think it can be really kind of a fun hobby together, to have an interest in real estate investing and going to conferences and talking about it, and having business meetings can be fun. We try and do our quarterly meetings where we go to a nice dinner and we talk all through our business, and it's something that we have in common. We had in common when our kids are home, and certainly we have in common now that we just became empty nesters. And it's exciting. It's not you're gearing towards, retirement, but we have these projects and these real estate investments that keep us fully engaged together.
Most investors who are out there and they don't dare to start, what will be the steps that you will suggest to them in order to overcome whatever is that it's holding them back?
Mhm. Well, I like what you said earlier about, like, look at the numbers, but sometimes you don't really know what numbers to look at, or, like, what even to, you don't know what you don't know. So I think the first step really is to um, get involved with developing community with other real estate investors that are like-minded in such a way, they don't have to be exactly like you, but you can see enough of yourself in them to give that spark of faith that you need. Like, oh my gosh, sometimes you'll go like, they're not the sharpest tool in the shed, but they can do it. I can do it. Truly, it's like it creates that belief in yourself, and to see the power of somebody that just took action and then emulate that.
Sometimes I call it borrowing someone else's confidence.
Totally.
It's one of the things that I do in the communities. I have to tell you, I struggle a lot seeing myself growing in real estate, and I start hanging out with a bunch of powerful women in many aspects, right? There were investors, there were mothers, there were friends, there were everything. And when you meet them and they believe in you, you just want to stay in the group, right? So it's contagious. It's like we want to belong. We want to belong.
Right.
And I was always an outlier, but belonging pushed me to start getting out of my comfort zone. And they start lending me their confidence. And that's when I went from one single family home duplexes to hotels development, just that fact of surrounding myself with a community. So
And
having this
normalizing it, right?
normalizing.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So in that process of normalization, what has been your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge today, gosh, I mean, there's a couple of things. I'm still a work in progress with systems, to put everything in place. We still self-manage most of our properties to this day. And those things, like even with this many years of experience, things I just should know like the back of my hand, and I find myself recreating things. So if I were to go back to when I was starting investing, I would have put systems in place way, way, way earlier so that it was a habit and we built it the right way. So that's one thing that's been a big challenge. And then this is a good problem to have, but I think it can be very common to have is when you're so interested in the investing realm and real estate and so forth, it can be something that kind of takes over your life a little bit too much. And I know it's really exciting, but sometimes you got to pace yourself just a little bit and really stop and smell the roses and enjoy your life and your family and the beauty of life. Because the longer I get down the road, the more that I know that the joy is in the journey. And it's not all about just reaching that pinnacle. A lot of people have a number of cash flow they're going to reach, or number of doors, or all these little accomplishments that we can rest our laurels on, but it's really about appreciating the journey and not being a workaholic along the way in it, basically.
Yes, you nail it. You're coming from a holistic approach, and I think that
Now I am, but
also,
I didn't always. So that's why I'm saying to other people, like, don't do that.
thank you. I think that's a great advice. I wish I would have heard that a long time ago too, because it takes a lot to really put your actions align with the values and priorities that you have. And sometimes we're focused and so entertaining what we do that we forget to, be in our present and value and dedicate the time to the people that we care the most, just going through that journey. So, and especially with investing, and I think that a lot of investors that invest passively don't realize that it's not very passive when you own it and you're in control and you make decisions, right? It was my
Mhm.
very first lesson. And that's why I actually start investing in syndication and start doing syndications. So I'm like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go big. I'm gonna scale up. And in the process, I learned a lot about systems, but also I learned the importance of the community, and the community helps you grow and challenge yourself and learn better ways to do it in a way that you can set up your lifestyle. So in your community, have you seen someone grow at this point? What is there this person that you have seen grow a lot?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. From I can point to a couple of people that are just kind of like I relate to. They're a lot like me in my journey. I've got one gentleman in our community. He was actually my real estate client for years and helped him purchase and sell multiple properties as a client. And he worked at a government job here in Idaho. His wife had been a teacher, and then she was a stay-at-home mom. So they lived on very modest income, and he was just getting started really on his journey. And saw him grow over the last several years, and now he quit his W-2 back very soon after, just took a leap of faith, became a full-time agent so he could supplement, his income for the time being with real estate transactions. He owns a very profitable property management company and multiple doors, short-term and long-term rentals, and now is getting into some development here in town. And from someone that I first sat down with at Starbucks dozen years ago to where he is today is just like night and day. And I'm so proud of, I'd be proud of him anyway. He's a good friend, but like the journey that he's taken by taking one step consistently over the other. And so much of that's been through community here and building relationships one person at a time to help him on his journey. And now he gives back within our community and helps new investors all the time that are starting their journey. And so that's just an example that comes to mind of somebody that's grown exponentially, but there's lots of stories.
What about your story? What's coming for Jonna?
What's coming for Jonna? Well, I'm a recent empty nester. My son got married this summer, and my daughter is a senior in college. So I tell you, it's no joke. Like the first year was really tough when the last one went to college, but now like having the realization that she's a full-grown adult, and my son is married to a wonderful bride, and they live down in Colorado, and it truly is opening up doors. It's like, okay, well, they're raised, they're doing their thing and they're thriving. And so what's next for me? And part of that is this passion that I have for other real estate investors and helping them along their journey. And I'm very involved just in the state of Idaho in general. I've got investments in multiple cities throughout the state and family throughout the state. And so if I could have a crystal ball, I think it would be continuing to help investors throughout, of course, nationally, but really my heart is in the state of Idaho, and to continue to develop community, highlighting other people's success journeys. And I still do run a real estate team. And so coincidentally, I don't really work with investors so much anymore. I work more in luxury and high-end residential. So it's kind of a fun to have the two worlds kind of separate but mixed. I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur, but what's really important for my husband and I right now is continuing to develop my business so that I'm more and more location independent. We love to travel, and so we're planning possibly a month in London next year. We are planning multiple international trips and figuring out, trying to reverse engineering how we can make that happen and still continue to develop everything that I'm doing in my businesses. And it's a challenge, but it's a really fun one to have. And we will continue to travel, enjoy, and cultivate our investor community here.
Awesome. It sounds really fun. It sounds like you're preparing a lifestyle while you're preparing your business to be a little bit more hands off. And is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, that is definitely correct. It's easy to stay in the weeds, but we got to get out of them.
Yes, yes. So how are you preparing your systems and processes to be able to work, on your business, not in your business?
Oh, that's a work in progress, but I have it pretty darn dialed in with my real estate team. It's been something I've run a team for several years, and so we've actually downscaled and simplified quite a bit. So I think that is pretty solid. I've got an amazing team partner that I brought on that serves our clients so well. And then with our property management, we did relinquish one of our properties, a commercial property, to a property manager a couple years ago. That's working out well. So I will be looking into possible professional property management in the future. But even with self-managing, it's just having like the checklists and the move-in checklist, the move-out checklist, a process so that it's taken us years to have tenants not text us at 10 p.m. on a Sunday night, just putting those little things in place that help us with our boundaries so that we can stay professional. Just because we self-manage doesn't mean that we can't act like a bona fide business
Yeah.
with hours and so forth. And then with each new hire that I have in whatever business that I'm running, it's a process, but we're getting better at it. And we want to empower and enrich the lives of our team that works with us and for us and make sure that they're empowered to do a great job in our absence. But definitely a work in progress.
Yeah, it's always, it never ends. It doesn't matter.
And
So,
simplify a little bit. We may be simplifying a little bit of our portfolio too and turn them into some things more passive.
yes, sometimes simplicity helps you get more passive and it allows you to grow and scale up. And I think that that's the direction that you're taking. Um, I noticed something very particular about you. Um, Maybe this is what drives you as a teacher, as a leader in your community. You're about empowering other people. Where is that coming from?
That's a great question. It just innate. It is. I don't know how to answer it other than I know that there's that whole like saying my Maya Angelou about people don't remember what they say, but they remember how you make them feel. And it's extremely important to me that people feel equipped and empowered to, do whatever their heart's desire, whatever God's put in their heart to create in their lives. And that's something that we work really hard to cultivate, that feeling that people have that they're seen and that they matter and that they can accomplish big things. And that's kind of not kind of, that's an objective. Every time we have like what we have called connection events with our Boise Real Estate Investor Network, and that's when we get together and talk about what's important to happen that event. It's all about the experience and how they're felt. And I think, and this is not a knock against any organization or group or conference or anything, but sometimes what naturally happens in the real estate investor community is there's kind of the bigwigs, right? And they're on stage and they're kind of idolized. And most of the time they're men. And they just are, and they're kind of like rock stars standing up there, and people are waiting to get their pictures with them and all of that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Good, go for it. Good on them. But, I think we need to celebrate everybody in the room and no matter where they are in their journey. And if that person's big mission, and maybe they're a cancer doctor and they love what they do and they feel called to do that, but their idea of success is having 3 rental properties they're going to be paid off by the time they retire and create that additional cash flow and source of income that gives them that peace of mind. I want to celebrate that too. It's not all or nothing, and you don't have to do it a certain way. Everybody's journey is important.
I commend that. It's people forget about the definition of success, the definition of helping other people too, and what it comes back, right? Normally, people feel like they need to help, they need to provide service. That's what leaders do, and that's why I wanted to point that out because I have seen that in you. The few times we have interacted, I
Oh,
have
thank
seen it
you.
often. And that comes from a place of the heart. And what I notice is that working with women, I see it often. We don't need to be in the center of the stage, but also we deserve, we welcome that. But it's what we can do for other people that really inspire us to grow, to scale up, to be better, and also to make sure that in our nurturers side, right, we're empowering other people, supporting them, and ensuring that they're getting what they need to grow. And I think it's
Right.
very fulfilling. It's very
Amen.
fulfilling.
Totally agree.
Um, is there any like you are a person very heartfelt. Is there any specific causes that you support, right? We make all of this money and sometimes we don't know where to invest it back. Is there anything that captures your heart or what is your mission helping other people besides the community of real estate?
Yeah, that is something I'm continuously working out, but they're just in general, Idaho affordability is becoming very scarce in Idaho, just like it is in other states, but a lot of people are really surprised to hear that. If you look at a map right now, Idaho I believe our market in Treasure Valley is higher than Austin at this
Yeah.
point, and our median price point at its peak was about 600, and now it's hovering around 540. So it's not cheap to live here anymore, and we're having extreme affordability issues. And my heart goes one my heart goes to senior citizens, and my heart goes to kids that are caught in the crosshairs of poverty. And that is a huge piece of my heart and where I want to direct my efforts. And I want to collaborate and support other incredible nonprofits in this area. You know, we've got this gentleman in my in the investor network. His name is Mike Turner. Shout out to Mike in case he's listening. But he does a thing that every quarter he gets members of our community together and they pledge $100 per quarter. And then they have three charities come and three nonprofits come and pitch their services or what they offer to our community. And then everyone votes on which charity is going to get the money. And so I was at it for the first time this fall. And just because we showed up at an event, $14,000 went to a charity of choice right there. And three charities got highlighted, and they all seem to have a thread of helping those categories that I talked about before. And so I love our food bank. We're volunteering, my brokerage, we're volunteering at the food bank next month, and doing a financial drive as well. But underserved financially, you know, people that are underserved and working to escape poverty is a huge part. You know, I believe in that adage of a hand up, not a hand out. And when, you know, you always think about when things settle down and you get a little more free time, I don't believe you just get it, you have to create it. But I do want to help with financial literacy and helping people escape from that situation and create that wealth for themselves. In some respect, I don't know what that looks like yet.
We never do. We never do.
No,
We shape, we build as we go.
you just take
I
one
love
step
that.
after the other.
Yes, yes, that's amazing. Now, is there any last advice, based on your life experience, that you will give to new investors and to investors who are scaling up?
I would just say, like, pace yourself. If you're consistent, things are going to happen. I remember a couple of years ago, I looked back at my investing career and I was just like blown away in a good way of what happened over the course of a decade. And they say, you know, you always overestimate what you can do in a year and underestimate what you can do in a decade. And there was a lot of unnecessary panic and stress involved with like feeling like it didn't happen fast enough. But real estate is a long-term game and a numbers game. And if you're consistent in doing the right things, it's just like an investment, like a traditional investment, that compounds. Your equity compounds, your skills compound, your network that you're creating and your team that you're creating, it gets better and better and better. And so just be consistent, but continue to live and enjoy your life throughout the process and trust in the process that good things will result. Hope that makes sense.
It does make sense to me.
Yeah, it's just that I think a lot of times people are, especially newer investors, are way too hard on themselves because they're just like, oh, it's not happening fast enough, or they're inconsistent in the fact that they keep chasing shiny objects and trying a different strategy and a different whole different niche or whatever, like every 2 months, and they need to stick with something long enough and stick to fundamentals, learn from those that have gone before them, and things are going to happen for them. Good things.
Yes, I love the fact you said consistency is key. Stop chasing shiny objects. That was when I started, that was one of my biggest challenges. There were so many opportunities, and it was a blessing because now I have more tools. I went through at least one deal and then I say, this is not for me. Like, I'm not a
Mhm.
flipper. You're not going to find me doing flippings. I can do the private lending all day long. I can do numbers, but you're not going to find me doing a flip because
Me
I don't
neither,
love it.
actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my partners love it. They just love to flip homes. That stresses me out. I have this saying, no heels, no deals. So if I cannot wear my heels to my job, I don't want to do it. So it keeps me focused. It keeps me on my lane. I appreciate what they do. I support them in what I'm good at it, but I let them be.
I
So
love
I think
that.
this, yeah, I think it's a great advice to people. Stay focused, stay consistent, and be persistent. And it's in the long term. It's not going to happen from today to tomorrow. And I love that. I love that. That's a great advice. So, well, for those who are from Boise, Idaho, or want to visit Idaho's Real Estate Club, we will be putting the link at the bottom so you can connect with Jonna.
Yeah.
Jonna, thank you so much for sharing your spark with our community, and I'm looking forward to connect with you and hear more about your success.
Oh, thank you so much, Jen. It's a pleasure. I appreciate you letting me come on and share about myself and Boiserein today. And I just know that your viewers are just as awesome as you are. So I'd love to connect with any of you.
Oh, thank you. Bye.